DM guys, nice to have you with me. My name is Professor John Keating and I am founder and director of Ape School. Today I would love to talk to you about recent changes of the privacy policy of MetaMask.
So let me give you a short background about the complete situation, because it sounds very bad, but actually it's not that bad, and there is no reason for panic. Let me say first of all that. So a couple of days ago, the company called Consensys, and this is actually the owner of the MetaMask and the company which is developing MetaMask, they shared an update of their privacy policy, okay? And after that, everybody gone crazy because there were statements like anonymity is dead, decentralization is dead, blockchain will die if we not keep our data secret and so on. To be honest, the update was actually just related to two simple topics. They just made transparent what they are anyway collecting. And the second point, they just made transparent that they want to comply with GDPR by providing the guy who is actually having the skill of data protection officer. Both of those updates are actually good for the community because we get first more transparency, and the second, we understand that MetaMask and the company behind wants to comply with GDPR. So this is actually quite good. But let me give you an overview about the data which they are collecting and about the usage of those data, because I think these two areas are important to understand, and about the modules or components which are actually collecting those data. So let's start with the data. So actually there are two groups of the data which MetaMask and the modules behind are collecting. Either the data that you are giving them if they ask, or if you are installing the MetaMask. And the second group are the data which are automatically created and collected, okay? This is important to understand. Regarding the data that you are giving them, MetaMask is stating quite let's say openly transparent that they will use maybe all the data which you give them like that, but you are not forced to give them those data. So this means if you want to give them data, you can do that. If you don't want to do that, it's up to you to decide. If you do that, if you give them the data, they are stating clearly in their policy that they may use the data in the case that business needs that, or that there are any kind of legal requirements or whatever. So this is the first point. These kind of data are like name, address, contact information, and so on. The second group, this was the automatically created set of data, like, for example, IP address, like, for example, wallet address, or data that you created during you are interacting with MetaMask. Those data are collected and saved as well, automatically, but without your permission, unfortunately, in the moment. And this is, of course, not that nice. Let's understand now a little bit the architecture of MetaMask to understand who is actually collecting which data. So if we are talking about MetaMask, we are actually talking about two different modules. One module is actually the application itself. This is the piece of the software which you install on your mobile phone or desktop or whatever. And then there is a second part, which is actually called Infura, which is actually node to access the blockchain. Both of those elements are actually collecting the data. The first one means the app is collecting the automatically generated data and the data that you give them. And the second one is collecting just the automatically created data, like wallet address, IP address, and so on. Because, by the way, they cannot work without those data. There is no transaction, of course, without wallet address, for sure. So this is first important to understand which part is collecting what. And now the second important part. This second part called Infura, this is actually a piece of software which is nothing else than the blockchain node. And you need it to access the blockchain. It's working like API. So the MetaMask application is calling that node in order to interact with the blockchain. Infura is belonging to the same company like the application that you are installing on the desktop. This is now, of course, maybe not that nice, but actually you are not forced to use Infura. You can open your MetaMask, reconfigure it, set it up on a different way, and use the different access point for instead of Infura. So this means this second group of the data, which are automatically collecting if you are interacting with the blockchain, can be excluded by changing the MetaMask configuration. But the first one is still there. So this means the data which are asked to give them and automatically created on your desktop or mobile phone. Okay, so this is now important to understand that there are two different parts of the application and both of them are collecting different data. All those two elements, this is nothing new. They are existing since always. And by the way, every wallet which we are using has to use that kind of, let's say, API or node, which is enabling the access to the blockchain. So it's nothing new, it's nothing strange, and the data which are there, they are always there. That's why I think it's very important to understand what are the plans and the promises of MetaMask and the company behind, what to do with those data. I think this is more important. On one side, they are telling us they will follow the GDPR. So this is already very important because GDPR is telling us which kind of data have to be or can be stored, what is allowed and what is not allowed. This is already great. I love that. But on the other side, they are having something in the privacy policy which is enabling them to do whatever they want with the data. And this kind is like, if there is a business need for that, we will use the data. So this is something which is not nice, of course. And the second point is, if the law is requiring it, we will give the data as needed. This means if tomorrow any kind of regulation is coming to the MetaMask, actually asking to connect any transaction with a real person, it will be very easy to do that because they will be forced, or they are already forced to deliver the data. They will have exactly the transaction numbers. They will have the IP numbers, the real life IP numbers. And by that, they will be able to access the real data of the real person behind, even if you don't give them on purpose the data, like your name and address and so on. So this means on one side, nothing new is happening. On the other side, we should know that there is actually something like anonymity in the internet space anyhow, and in Web3 space as well not. Even if you are using some tools like VPN and so on, you still need... You still need some kind of internet provider which is actually giving you access to internet. At least this guy, for example, Telecom or whoever, he knows exactly which kind of IP address do you have and what is the name and person and physical address behind that. So that's why no panic. Actually, it's a good situation. We have more transparency what these guys are doing. On the other side, nothing is dying. Blockchain is not dying. Decentralization is not equal anonymity. Decentralization simply means that the nodes are directly communicating with each other, even if they know or don't know who those guys are. So everything will be fine again, but we should know that there will be more regulations going in that direction, and it's easier, of course, to access all this data. So that's why I see it actually positive. Now I want to give you just very briefly, very short, my opinion about something what is happening in the space in the moment. You should know that Infura is actually a very important part of the Ethereum blockchain infrastructure. This is like a node which is used not only by MetaMask, it's used by many different apps to access the blockchain and to interact with the blockchain. This means I am expecting, and now this is my personal opinion, maybe it's totally wrong. I'm expecting that the next regulation wave of the government and whomever will go towards those nodes, because we have two signs, let's say, the directions are like that. The first was to regulate the exchange platforms. This is to regulate the flow of the money, let's say. And now we need to regulate the technology, the flow of the information. And you can regulate it not by regulating the apps itself, but by regulating the access points to the blockchain. So this means means if the Infura and similar nodes are regulated, no need for regulation of the blockchain. And this seems to me like a strategy to regulate the space.